What is going on, Swoopers? Welcome back to another episode of Squawk with Swoop. We are with David Zita. You might know him if you're on Twitter. You might know him as the Schnitty man from from the tribunal hearings. David, thank you so much for joining us, mate.
Good to be with you, Luke. Anytime, mate. Happy to be here.
No, thank you, thank you. Look, let's first get that out of the way. So, tribunal hearings. You're the man that's updating all of us. I think I started seeing your tweets maybe last year. I don't know if you were doing them
Mm.
before then, but it's was that something that was sort of like given to you, or you sort of took the initiative to do that yourself?
We used to sort of rotate it around in the office, and then I think I started doing it, and then it's sort of just I don't know something. It seemed to get uh, bit popular, and it just sort of went from there. I really enjoyed covering that. Well, yeah, I enjoyed most of them.
Yeah,
Just the fact that I used to do it, when before I was working here, I used to follow them on blogs and stuff, and
yep,
you always wanted to know what was going on and the updates of the tribunals, and you just always wanted to do it pretty well. So, um, yeah, I feel like I'm in the position of most people because I'm not particularly legal savvy or anything like that. I'm pretty basic, so I feel like I can interpret it all for everyone else because if I can understand it, I think everyone else can too. So it just sort of went from there, mate. To be honest, I didn't really have a massive plan, but it seems to have developed a bit of a reputation now. So
it has.
it's a big week for me.
Yeah, it's yeah, look, you're really the go-to guy, and I don't really I don't know what I sort of did before, your tweets and stuff like that. It might have been updates on like the Herald Star or whatever it might have been.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you think there's ever going to get to a point where I know it goes for sometimes they're as quick as 90 minutes, sometimes they're as long as like 4 hours and stuff like that, especially the Patrick
yeah,
Cripps one last year that was like
yeah,
two hearings or whatever it was. Will there ever
yeah.
get to a point where it is not maybe not televised or streamed or something like that?
Um, I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, you probably could stream it. I really, I say it all because again, I'm in the position most people are like, you're like, why can't we watch this? This
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
like, I used to be like that as well. And then you honestly, you sit in there and you listen to it, and it's not. I'm telling you, it's not.
Yeah.
It's verbose. It's convoluted. It's just like being in a legal hearing. There's no real
Yep.
footy chat. It's pretty bare bone. It's not. They're not exciting. So you try and make it exciting. A good thing happens every now and again, and you have a bit of fun with it. But yeah, I'm not sure what the rulings are in terms of what can or cannot be televised. But yeah, I assure you, like, yeah, I'm doing the best I can to make it exciting because it's not very exciting. So
And
you're
it
not you're
is.
not missing much, honestly.
No, and your tweets are pretty exciting. I think, I kind of touched on it at the start. You're the Schnitz guy now, and I remember I tweeted you the other day, and I got some Schnitz from before. I can't remember which game it was before, and I ended up getting a burger, and you kind of
Oh,
you
I
called me
saw
out
that.
because I didn't get the wrap. So I'm
Well,
getting the wraps from now on.
I never knew they. I genuinely didn't even know they did burgers. I'll be honest with you. And I saw that, and that was a disgrace, really. What they gave to you. I don't know what that was. Just like a schnitzel, and then just like a couple of tiny buns on top.
Yeah, yeah.
That was not, and it probably cost like I'm telling you, mate. You don't go to Schnitz and get a burger. You get a wrap. Like
No,
if there
look,
better burgers everywhere, not better schnitzels than Schnitz
I've learned my lesson, man. Not
wraps.
only did you call me out, half of Twitter called me out. So it's
Oh,
all
did
it's all wraps now from Schnitz. But look, man, I got you on for to talk really about the biggest case that probably I remember Collingwood having in a very long time, especially in a final series. I guess the last one
mm,
would have been maybe my memory. I don't know. I haven't got a good memory, but Jason Cloke,
mm,
Rocker as well,
yeah,
2002, 2003.
yeah,
I can't remember
yeah.
anything else as big as that for the Pies in finals.
Not for a final. I remember obviously Collingwood wise earlier this year we had Taylor Adams at
Yep.
Anzac Day, him and Zach Merritt in the same
Yep.
week. That was a lot of Taylor Adams is he was giving a fair bit of shtick to the he was giving a bit of attitude to the tribunal. He felt like he was being attacked and he had to get told he wasn't. He's got a lot of bite to him, Taylor, which we love.
Does.
He's a warrior. Yeah, but in terms of finals, I can't recall a big finals one. But again, maybe I'm just
Yeah.
forgetting something. Maybe we both are. But this is quite large, I would have thought. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And look, I guess first and foremost to kind of get out of the way, I do, and you and every other, even every single Collingwood supporter as well hopes that Brayshaw is all good. We've
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
we've seen, Maynard went to his house and he had his thumbs up when he was coming out. I think Mitch Cleary
Mm,
said he was walking around and stuff after the room. So,
yeah.
at least he's sort of responsive and talking stuff. And yes, he's going to miss,
Mm,
probably the rest of the final series, which isn't good. Like you wouldn't wish that upon your worst sort of enemy. But this incident went straight to the tribunal, classified as careless conduct, severe impact, high contact.
yeah.
Initially, when you saw it, what were your sort of thoughts?
I probably initially thought, like I think a lot of the commentators did, that it was a footy act and everything was okay. Obviously Angus wasn't okay, but everything in terms of match review point of view
Yep.
would be okay. Um, but then, I mean, you then the more you talk about things and the more you think about it, if there's even a bit of grey, and it seemed like it was very divisive. Some people
Yep.
thought he should be banned. Some people thought he shouldn't be banned, which is ridiculous. I think when there's such a divide, and you even had, I think, divide within the AFL over how this should be graded or whether it should be graded at all, um, you probably are best, I think, in their eyes, they're best to just go, all right, let's let the tribunal sort this out.
Yeah.
So at least we have a precedent moving forward from the tribunal. They've done that with a few cases this year. Um, Tom Lynch and Alex Keith is one that gets brought up. That marking contest was a slightly different circumstance in the way the cases were made, but at the end of the day, it probably boils down to something similar.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, initially I didn't think it would. It would initially. So my gut, so my interpretation of it all, my view on it is that he'll get off.
Yep.
But it just has to go through this route for it to happen. That's all. So
Yeah.
I'm not too fussed with them going to the tribunal. Like, grade it, send it there. Let's just see what happens.
Yep.
I think it's a footy act and he'll be okay, but I can understand why they sent it there. So I'm not up in arms. But again, I don't. I know you guys, Collingwood, might be a bit different because he's a very important player. But I understand why they're sending it there.
Yeah, and I think that's, obviously I see a lot of comments just with what I do, and I kind of got a 60-40 split. Most of them sort of agree with
Mm,
with what you're saying, and it couldn't just have been because it's because of the concussion. It couldn't just have been thrown out, which I get. So it kind of goes
mm,
into the tribunal. So it's kind of like it's
mm.
almost for lack of a better term, they're kind of Pontius piloting themselves, where they're just washing their hands and letting someone else sort of take care of it. Um,
Yeah,
I
I, yeah. Well, I think so. I think obviously they're the AFL and it's within their competition. I think what they're doing is they want to make sure that this gets given a proper hearing and this goes through the process. And Braden Maynard gets booked. I imagine he'll give evidence on
Yep.
Tuesday night. I think they just want it to have a thorough review. So you get that at the tribunal because you have obviously two former players and you've got Jeff Gleeson there as the tribunal chairperson. You've got a panel there to listen to both cases.
Yeah.
So, and I understand where the AFL is coming from with the desire to protect the head. I think what they're going to argue, and this is where basically what the case will come down to, I think, is when Braden Maynard was in the air. I think the AFL believed that he turned and elected to bump while he was in the air. So
Yep.
I think that's where they were coming from when they sent this to the tribunal and they graded it. Clearly, Collingwood will not. I'll say it was a footy act, and he didn't
Yep.
have an intention to hurt, and he wasn't being unreasonable in the circumstances. Look, I can understand why the AFL is sending it there. It doesn't hurt them to send it to the tribunal because they're going to get a thorough hearing. We're going to hear from Braden Maynard probably. We'll hear both sides of the story. The AFL is being active and protecting their head. I don't. Yeah, I understand that there might be politics behind it. I think also that they genuinely believe that this should be something that's interrogated. So
Yep.
I don't have an issue with it, but I know that it's hard when you get to Tuesday and potentially Thursday if it gets upheld
Yeah.
and an
Bloody hell.
appeal board and you don't know if Braden Maynard's playing. So even though you got a week off, so I understand the frustrations of people, but I don't see any issue with us going through it with it just getting put through the process, just so we have a really good understanding of what we can and can't do. It'll set some precedent for us, which I think it doesn't hurt to have more of a guide as to what you can and can't do. I don't think.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I think precedent is the key word here. Like we saw, and I hate to bring up Carlton just in general, but we saw last year with Patrick Cripps when he got off those
Yeah.
couple of, well, sorry, he didn't get off. He, went to the tribunal. They kept going, and then the lawyer got him off with a
Yeah.
loophole, and then they closed that loophole. So then,
Yeah.
going forward, that sort of act isn't, you can't. Well, they've just sort of closed that loophole in general.
Yeah. Yeah, so that I think the appeal board is an interesting one. I think so when people think, so you look at the Cripps thing, and he obviously ultimately got off, but he didn't get off because he didn't bump. I don't think he got off because there was an error in the way that there was a lack of directions given to the tribunal when Jeff Gleeson sent them away to deliberate.
Yeah.
So again, there was an error of law in there, which is one of the 4 grounds for appeal. So when people get off at the appeal board, and we saw it even this most recent week at the appeal board with Toby Bedford, it's less about the action itself and more about the process around the action and how it was reviewed at the tribunal. It's far more legal than the tribunal is. The tribunal is the act and how it falls into the guidelines. The appeal board is more about the legalities behind it. How did you arrive at that decision? Was the right processes followed? Okay. So the appeal board's very it's legalese. It's even more convoluted. That's far more of a in the fine print. I think the tribunal's where things get sorted out, whether it is or isn't a bump, or it is or isn't rough conduct. And then the appeal board's more of a let's try our luck from a legal perspective and see if we can find a loophole here. So they're 2 very different things.
Yeah, interesting. See, I didn't think of it like that. So yeah, so interesting. So the appeal board's obviously the second one. So say Braden Maynard, they uphold it 3 weeks, whatever. Passing goes to the appeal board. It's a whole different thing. And there's no former players on that, right? It's all legal lawyers and stuff.
No, there are former players on there. No, so there's a chairperson there, and there are a couple of former players on there as well. So, but basically, yeah, you can only the grounds for you can appeal anything at the tribunal. Like you can appeal whatever you want. The grounds for appeal at the appeal board are different. There's an error of law, or the decision was so unreasonable that you couldn't have come to that decision if you were acting in a just way or in an ethical or in a logical way. So it is a much more legal lens that you go to the appeal board with. So like Cripps got off, and we saw Bedford get off, Van Rooyen got off earlier this year. At the appeal board, so we can see that happen, but it's generally more in the legal part of it that they find a breakthrough as opposed to the action itself. So I think the tribunal will be a really interesting one because that's where we'll see what the precedent is, and then the appeal board obviously will do its thing if it gets to that point. I don't know if it will. I think he has a good case, but again, we've seen stranger things happen this year. That's for sure.
Well, we have, and look, you kind of brought up something that I wanted to bring up as well, which I kind of think is pretty much the same sort of action in a sense, is the Lynch and Keith one from earlier this season. So before I jumped on, I was, having a look at the footage again and having a bit of a write up and stuff. And when Lynch, I've just got a bit of a write up here. So when Lynch did his case, he said that one, he realized he misjudged the flight of the ball and ran underneath the football, too late to stop. And the biggest one for me was that he said that he rotated his body to avoid being put in a vulnerable position and going straight into
front on.
Straight into Keith, which is what I think Maynard's 3 biggest reasons, or at least 2 of them, would be as well.
Yeah, I'm looking. So the reasons I think I wrote that night were so the interesting thing here is, all flight can be this is what Jeff Gleeson said that night. All flight can be misjudged and leaps can be mistimed. It's not careless for a player to do no more than brace for contact in those circumstances. I think the Lynch precedent is it would be a strong one for Collingwood to use. I do think that they will show that the difference here is he was not. I mean, you can say he's contesting the ball. Lynch was going for a mark in a pack, and Maynard was trying to spoil. So it's probably more spoiling technique as opposed to marking technique. But that's just hazarding a guess as to how the AFL will see it. So this is different. Lynch was going at the ball. He was trying to contest the ball. and Maynard didn't have to do what he did in order to try and attempt to spoil. That's what I think the AFL will say, playing
Yeah.
devil's advocate. But I agree with you. That's the one I thought of during the week, and obviously I brought up publicly as well. That would be the most. There'd be some good grounds there for Collingwood to use. So I think there's stuff there. It's not like for like. Not many incidents are in footy, but I think there's enough there that you can at least. I expect Collingwood to bring it up in their argument. That's for sure.
Yeah. So look, it's a big thing. Like, I know we keep sort of touching on it, and it's a big thing just in general. We talk about the precedent, we talk about the head knocks and stuff, and you ask any Melbourne supporter, I don't think I've said, and credit to them, because one of their best players sort of gets knocked out cold, and there goes his sort of season, and I
Yeah.
haven't seen one sort of Melbourne supporter say no, it was actually a spoiling sort of act, or it was actually a smothering. So you can see that there's always going to be two sides to every sort of story, and we're going to be biased, and I'm going to be biased as much as I like to stay unbiased. Of course, I'm going to back Maynard as much as I can, but sometimes I try to take off those lenses, and that's why I wanted to get a neutral party on to have a chat about it, so I'm not just getting blasted on social media. But look, it's a big one. Do you think, like, what do you think going forward? Does does Chriso's job, he was sort of overruled by Laura Kane and Dylan. Does that sort of become obsolete a little bit, or what do you reckon there?
I think it's a discussion post-season in terms of how I think, like everything in the AFL, you review your systems and see if they're the best they can be. I don't think it's unhealthy to have countering viewpoints there. I don't think it's unhealthy if Michael Christian decided that he thought it wasn't a ban, they thought it was a ban. They have a chat. I mean, it happens in footy, it happens in organisations all the time. You have disagreements, and you work them out, and you need different points of view. Otherwise, you become an echo chamber. So I don't see an issue with them disagreeing. Now, if he feels like, well, if I'm going to make a decision and you're just going to overrule it, then what's the point of me being here? I think Laura Kane, who's obviously now the permanent EGM of footy, she has a mandate to make the decisions that she wants to make and thinks are right for the AFL, as to the people higher up. I don't have an issue with them expressing that, as long as it's transparent, which without, the AFL obviously didn't come out and say Chriso was overruled, blah, blah, blah. But the way they worded their release, they did everything they possibly could to make sure it was clear how things played out.
Yeah.
So maybe there are ways to improve. I'm not sure, but I mean, it's not an easy job. Michael Christian has that job of match review, and it's a very all-encompassing job. Clearly, there's so many incidents every week. Even the ones he throw out, there's so many to look at. So I think the EGM and Laura Kane and Andrew Dillon have got bigger fish to fry and bigger things to worry about in their full-time job, whereas Michael Christian can solely focus on this, which I think is a really good viewpoint to have. But it certainly will be a different dynamic now that Laura Kane's the permanent EGM of footy. I've got no problem with her making her stance clear. She's been given the mandate to make her views, put them forward, and she's, at the end of the day, she's the boss in that department. So, but yeah, I think it'll be an interesting. I think there's a lot of things that the tribunal. We talk about the score review, the tribunal system. There's lots of things that I think can be updated and streamlined, whatnot. I think that's one of the things. And if you're ever going to see change, I think it's going to be now that you've got Andrew Dillon in there. He's got a new. He's obviously putting his new team together. There are things he wants to change. He's obviously in contact with the clubs a lot. So I see Chris has still being there, but again, it's something that'll be an interesting one to watch over the off season. That's for sure.
Yeah, look, a lot of another. You bring up the ARC system, another one on over the weekend. It's just lots. Look, I don't envy them being in the position that they're in. But I guess that's why they get paid the big bucks, and we're doing what we're sort of doing. But look,
that's right, mate. Barely afford Schnitz.
Nah, surely you get it shouted now, right? You can that's just a write-off now, isn't it?
No, mate, they haven't got in touch with me at all, mate. So if everyone can just start messaging them and tell them to chop me out a bit, I'm starting to can barely afford to pay me rent at the moment. So that'd be good fun.
Bloody hell! I can't believe the Schnitz hasn't sponsored you. I don't know what is going on over there.
I think they're a far bigger organisation than me. I think they're not too worried about what I'm tweeting. But if they, hey, I won't say no if they give me some free stuff. I'm always up for free stuff, as we all are.
We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do, mate. Look, before I
No.
before I let you go, look, just one, thank you for again your time and coming on.
Cool.
You got a big night on Tuesday because not only do you have Maynard, you got Martin as well. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jack Martin, the Carlton are appealing. They announced that today, and then we'll know tomorrow, I think by 11 a.m. whether, or Monday that is. I don't know what time this will go up, but by Monday 11 a.m. whether the Melbourne are appealing Van Royen.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I don't think they've got much of a case, to be honest. I think one's pretty. If anything, I think they'd be happy with one rather than two.
Yep.
Yeah, but again, it's a final, so you may as well try. But again, but yeah, so I have two cases at least, and maybe a third. But I think obviously Maynard and Martin, and probably even then you can break it up. It's Maynard, and then everything else I think
Yeah.
is it's the big one. So it'll be a big Tuesday, that's for sure.
Yeah, mate. We'll be following you all the way. I'll be posting up all your stuff like I usually do anyway. So thank you for making my job a little bit easier. And I'm sorry you have to sit 4 hours of tribunal hearings.
No, it's fine, mate. It's all good. I do get paid to do my job, which is fine. I'm not doing it for nothing. It's all good. And there's a lot of support, which I love, a lot of banter, and everyone's always good sport about the tribunal stuff. So it's yeah, they get everyone else gets me through, to be honest.
That's
It's a
good.
good little community we've built, which I like.
No, I love that. David, thank you so much, mate. Enjoy the rest of your night. I really do appreciate it.
You too, mate. We'll speak soon.
See you then, mate. Bye.
See you, mate.